Hello, my dear student. Today we'll take our strategic management course for fourth year, a business administration session, English program work for week 9, lecture 9 by Dr. Sally Amer. Today we will begin a new chapter, chapter 8, strategy, generation and selection. Our learning objective for today is to know how to generate and evaluate alternative strategies, how to select a strategy to achieve, and how to design a strategy analysis and the choice seek to determine alternative course of actions that could be best enable the firm achieve its mission and objectives. This represents a summary for what we have discussed and what we will have take during this semester. First of all, we have finished chapter 4, type of strategies, last the lecture before, and we have taken chapter 5 about vision and mission analysis. Today we will take chapter 8, strategy generation and selection. So you should know what are the main types of your strategies and try to know what are your mission and vision, and after that you should know your strategy generation and selection, and after that you should make an implementation for your strategy and try to implement and try to begin to execution your strategy and try to make a monetary for your strategy. And as we have said before at our first lecture, that strategic management, it contains 3 main steps: strategy formulation, strategy implementation, and the last step is strategy evaluation. The process of generating and selecting strategies. For making a selection for the strategy, you should consider all the feasible alternatives that you can achieve a benefit for your company, and you should select the best one that will make you to achieve your best result, and you should have a manageable set of the most attractive alternative strategies must be developed, examine your priority and select the best one. So you should take into your consideration when you make a selection for the strategy, the advantage and disadvantage, the trade-off between the cost and the benefit. So in this case, you will make a good selection for your strategy. Also, when you make an identifying and evaluating for alternative strategy, so many manager and employee should try to know what our organizational vision and mission statement that performed by external audit and conducted by the internal audit. So we should depend on the representative from each department and division of the firm, so they must be included in this process to make the strategy formulation activity. Also, all the participants in the strategy analysis and the choice activities should have the firm external and the internal audit information available. So we should have the information available from the external and the internal audit, and this types of this information, the internal and external audit, should be coupled with the firm vision and mission. And so after that, you can make a generation and selection for the strategy. When you write the proposed strategy in a list and write it, so it will be ranked from it will take four different ranking. First of all, if it take number 1, so it should not be implemented. Number 2, possibly should be implemented. Number 3, properly should be implemented, and number 4, definitely should be implemented. For trying to design your strategy formulation analytic framework, you should know that this technique, it includes 3 main stages. So the first stage is called the input stage, and in this stage it makes a summarize the basic input information needed to formulate a strategy. So in this stage, you should make a good collection for the important input and the important information that you need to make a good formulation for your strategy, and you can depend on one of this analytic frameworks, such as external factor evaluation EFE matrix, and internal factor evaluation IEF matrix, and the competitive profile matrix CPM. The second stage is called the matching stage. And when we say matching, so in this case, you will generating all the feasible alternative strategies by aligning and take into consideration all the external and the internal factor, and try to make a balance between both external and internal factor. And the stage 2 technique includes strengths, weakness, opportunity, threats matrix, strategic position and action, evaluation space matrix, Boston consulting group matrix, internal external IE matrix, and the grand strategy matrix. And the last stage called the decision stage. And in this stage, it will consist only a single technique, which called quantitative strategic planning matrix, and its abbreviation is QSPM. And the QSPM, this technique uses the input information from stage 1 that we have collected in the stage 1, and to objectively evaluate feasible alternative strategies identified in stage 2. So at the stage 3, the decision stage, at this stage we will use all the information that we have gathered at the first stage, and after that we will try to make a good evaluation and the feasible evaluation about the alternative strategies that we have made at the second stage. So you should know that your strategy formulation analytic framework, it will include 3 main stages. The first stage is known as input stage, and in this case you will make a good collection for all the information you have need. And in the second stage, it's called as the matching stage, and in this stage you will make generating all feasible alternative strategy by taking into account your key external and internal factors, and you make a balance between those two sides. And at the last stage, as we have said before, it's called as the decision stage, and this stage depends only on a single technique. This is figure represent a summary about what we have said before, so you will depend on 9 technique at the 3 stage. So at the first stage, the input stage, you will depend about the external factor evaluation matrix, competitive profile matrix, internal factor evaluation matrix, and at stage 2, the matching stage, strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats matrix, SWOT matrix, space matrix, BCC matrix, IE matrix, and the grand strategy matrix. And at stage 3, we will depend on the quantitative strategic planning matrix, QSPM. And also you should I should say to you that we will not take all this technique. We will concentrate on some types of this technique, on the most important types of this. The strategy formulation analytic framework, all 9 techniques included in the strategy formulation analytic framework require the integration. So it requires the integration of institution and analysis. So you should make a good integration to be able to make a strategy formulation. Also, there is a various division in an organization, and the commonly used strategy formulation technique to develop strategy and objective. So the divisional analysis provides a basis for identifying, evaluating, and selecting among alternative corporate level strategies. The first stage, as we have said before, is known as the input stage. As we have said before, at the input stage, you make a good collection for the information needed. And the information needed is derived from the 3 main techniques as we have mentioned before: the external factor evaluation matrix, an internal factor evaluation matrix, and the competitive profile matrix. All these 3 techniques, it will provide you a basic input information for matching and decision stage matrix. So you will use all the collected information at the input stage at the 2 other stage known as the matching and decision stage matrix. So the input tool requires strategists to quantify subjectively during early stage of the strategy formulation process. So many small decisions in the input matrix regarding the relative importance of both external and internal factors allow strategists to more effectively generate, prioritize, evaluate, and select among alternative strategies. So it will help us the information that we have collected to know the main importance about the external and internal factors, and it will help you to make a good evaluation and selection for the alternative strategies. Also, you can make determining appropriate weight and rating. So if you're rating some strategy of 3, for example, is mathematically 50% more important than rating 2 for the small difference, so small difference matter. So if you're rating some strategy 3 and the other is 2, so you should know that the 3 is the best rating, and this strategy represents much better than the other. The second stage is known as matching strategy, and as we have said before, it takes the information for the external and internal factor, and at this stage we may define it as the match an organization make between the internal resource, skills, and the opportunities and risks created by external factors. So you make a good match between the internal and the external factor. And as we have said before, the matching stage is consist of 5 main techniques that can be used in any sequence. So you shouldn't use it in a specific sequence. You can use it in any sequence. The SWOT matrix, the space matrix, the BCG matrix, IE matrix, and the grand strategy matrix. So in this stage, these tools and these 5 tools depend on the information that drive it from the input stage or in the first stage. As we have said before, the first stage is known as input stage, to match the external opportunities and threats with internal strengths and weakness. So at the matching stage, you can make a match between the external opportunities and threats with the internal strengths and weakness. So, matching external and internal key factors is essential for effectively generating feasible alternative strategies. So, if you can make a good matching between the external factor and the internal factor, it will help you to make a good generation for all feasible alternative strategies. For example, a firm with excess working capital, and this is to represent an internal strength for your company, could take advantage of cell phone industry 20% annual growth rate and external opportunity. So you should make a good matching between your strengths, internal strengths, and external opportunity. So in this example, you make a good matching between 1-to-1 matching. You didn't make a didn't make a matching between different components. You make a matching between 1-to-1. So there is an other more complex example for making a matching between multiple alignment for each strategy generated. So for making a successful matching for the key external and internal factor, it depends on those underlying. The key factor being specified, action, and the divisional to extent possible. So you should take into consideration you have 2 types of matching. It may be simple one, it will be 1-to-1 matching, or it will be more complicated and it will be more complex, so it will use multiple alignment for matching. So for making a successful matching between the key external and the internal factor, it depends on taking into account your key factor being specified, actionable, and divisional to extent possible. And this table represents an example for making a matching between the key external and internal factors to formulate alternative strategies. For example, the key internal factor, excess working capital, this represents an internal strength. And sufficient capacity, this represents an internal weakness. Strong research and development expertise represent an internal strength. And poor employee morale represent an internal weakness. When we take a key external factor, represented by annual growth of 20% in the cell phone industry, an external opportunity, exit of 2 major foreign competitors from the industry, an external opportunity, decreasing numbers of younger adults, an external threat, rising healthcare costs, an external threat. So After you make a matching between the key internal factor and key external factor, so you will have the ability to make a good selection for all possible alternative or for all visible strategy. The SWOT matrix represents one of the main techniques that we can use at this stage. The strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats, the SWOT matrix is an important matching tool that help manager develop 4 types of strategies. So, when you use the SWOT matrix, you will be able to depend on 4 main types of strategy. The first one is O, is known as strengths, opportunities, strategies. The second one, WO, weakness, opportunities, strategies. The third one is T, strengths, threats, strategies. And the last one, WT, weakness, threats, strategies. When you make a good matching between key external and internal factor is the most difficult part of developing a SWOT matrix. So when you try to make a good matching between the internal and external factors, this represents the most difficult part of a SWOT matrix. So it requires you to make a good judgment. And there is no one best set of matches. So SO strategies use the firm internal strengths to take advantage of external opportunities. So in this case, you make a matching between the internal strengths with the external opportunities. So all managers would like their organization to be in a position in which internal strengths can be used to take the advantage of external trends and even. So in this case, you will use your internal strengths to take advantage of your external opportunities. Also, organizations generally use WOST or WT strategies to get into a situation in which they can apply SO strategies. When a firm has a major weakness, it will try to overcome them and make them strengths. So organization will exert more effort to try to change their weakness to be more strengths. When an organization faces more threats, it will seek to avoid them to concentrate more on their opportunities. Second one is WO, the weakness opportunity strategist. It aims to improving your internal weakness by taking into account your external opportunities. So, in sometimes key external opportunities exist, but a firm has internal weakness. So it will be try to prevent their internal weakness and try to take advantage of external opportunities. One possible WO strategy would be acquire this technology by forming a joint venture with a firm having competency in this area. An alternative WO strategy would be hired and trained with required technical capabilities. So you may have a good opportunity and external opportunity, but you may have an internal weakness in your organization. And for example, you may have an employee that not trained good and not qualified as required. So in this case, you will be trying to hire and train people and more for trying to doing their technical capabilities and try to capture your external opportunities. ST, strengths, threats. Strategies use a firm strengths to avoid or reduce the impact of external threats. For example, competitors' firms try to copy your idea and try to copy your innovation and patent product. So it may be considered as a major threat in many industries. Also, the last one, the WT, weakness threat strategies, are defensive tactics. So weaknesses threats represent a defensive tactic directed at reducing, and you try to reducing your internal weakness and avoiding external threats. So when you depend on WT, it represents a defensive tactic that the company used and try to reduce their internal weakness and avoiding their external threat. So under SWOT matrix, you will have 4 options you can depend on it. Also, the process of SWOT matrix, it can be summarized in 8 steps. The first step, it lists the firm key external opportunities, so you should determine your external opportunities. After that, you should determine your external threat, and after that, you should determine your internal strengths, and the 4th step is to determine your internal weakness. And after you determine your SWOT opportunities, threats, strengths, and weakness, you will make the match between internal strengths with external opportunities. And in this case, it will record SO. Or you can match your internal weakness with external opportunities, and in this case, it will be represented by WO. And you can make a match between internal strengths and external threats and record the result of ST. And you can match internal weakness with external threats and record WT strategies. Now we should know the purpose of applying the SWOT matrix. The purpose of a SWOT analysis and each stage 2. At stage 2, as we have said before, stage 2 is known as matching stage, is to generate feasible alternative strategies, not to select or determine which strategies are the best. So you should take into consideration when you apply the SWOT matrix is to know your alternative strategy, not to make the best selection for the best strategy. Is only the tools that help you to generate all possible alternatives that you can depend on it, but not a technique that you can use it to make the best selection for the best strategy. So this is represent an important note you should take into your consideration. Be concise, please, and try to focus with each word I have said in our lecture. So the SWOT analysis matrix, it uses only for generating all feasible alternative strategies, not to select or determine which one is the best. The strategy formulation guideline provided can enhance the process of matching key external and internal factors. So all the guidelines that I have used in a strategy formulation, it will enhance the process for making a good match between all external and internal factors. This is an example for how to apply the SWOT matrix. For example, when an organization has both the capital and the human resources needed to distribute its own products, so in this case it will be represent an internal strength, and the distributor are unreliable, costly, or incapable of meeting the firm needs, in this case it will represent an external threat. Forward integration can be an attractive strategy, ST strategy. Also, when a firm have excess production capacity, so it will represent an internal weakness and its basic industry experiencing declining annual sales and profits. So in this case, it will be external threat. So the related diversification can be an effective WT strategy. So here you should know the SWOT matrix limitation. What are the main limitations for applying SWOT matrix? Although SWOT matrix is widely used in strategic planning, the analysis does have some limitation. First of all, SWOT doesn't show how to achieve a competitive advantage. It doesn't represent a tool for determining how a company can achieve a more economic value rather than other competitors. It will not show you how can you achieve a competitive advantage. The matrix also should be as a starting point for a discussion on how proposed strategy could be implemented, as well as cost-benefit consideration that ultimately could lead to competitive advantage. So, the matrix can be represented or can be used as a starting point for a discussion. How can you use take into your consideration cost-benefit consideration? Second, SWOT is a static assessment in time. Also, there is our relationship among the key internal and external factors. So the SWOT analysis does not reveal that may be important in driving strategies. So they didn't take into consideration, or they didn't try to show how can it may be useful for making a good matching between internal and external factor for driving all the alternative and strategies. Fourth, there are no weight, rating, or number on a SWOT analysis, so you didn't use any numbers, or you didn't use any weight or rating. Finally, the relative attractiveness of alternative strategy is not provided. So it's revealed only in a single matrix. The decision stage represents the last stage for making the generation and selecting strategy. As I have said before, as a participant could individually rate strategies from 1 to 4, so it will have a rate from 1 to 4 according to our rating, so you can select to implement this strategy or not. As I have said before, number 1, it should not be implemented. Number 2, possibly should be implemented. Number 3, probably should be implemented. And 4, definitely should be implemented. And at this stage, we can use only one technique, is known as the QSPM, Qualitative Strategic Planning Matrix. And this is technique. It offers a more robust procedure to determine the relative attractiveness of alternative strategies. And also at this stage, you depend on the information you have gathered and collected at the first stage, as we have said before, is known as the input stage. And also you depend on how you can make a matching between the internal and external factors that we have did before at the second stage, the matching stage. And also, as we have mentioned before, at this stage you can make and determine all feasible strategies. You can make a selection for it, but it will not help you to make the best selection, but it helps you to make a good generation for all possible alternative strategies. So after we have finished all the 3 main stages that we can use as a process of generating and selecting strategies, the input stage, the matching stage, and the decision stage, we will continue this chapter 8 in the next week, inshallah. And we will try to cover most of this technique and the most important technique that we will have used at the second stage, the matching stage. And I will try to make you more understanding how can you use this technique when you try to make analyzing for your internal and external factors, and how can you make a good matching between the internal and external factors, and how can you use all this information at the decision stage. And at this decision you will determine the relative attractiveness of all alternative strategies. Thank you for your listening. If you have any question, don't hesitate to contact with me on my email. I mentioned it on the website of our faculty, and also if you have any question, you can contact with me on our WhatsApp group. Try to study hard and to begin to study much harder. If you have any question, don't hesitate to contact with me. Please stay at home and stay safe. See you next week, inshallah. Goodbye.